A contagious zombie virus takes over the city of Los Angeles, with only a few planes taking as many survivors as they can. Certain people have been given tickets who are monitored and tested to ensure that they are healthy, which leads to many generate counterfeit documents to board the plane, pretend to be emergency services to cut the queues, and adopting many more ways and tricks to get on board. One of those survivors is a male stripper named Ryan, who uses his fire department costume to pose as a firefighter to get onto the plane. Another is a hustler named Bruno, who steals the ticket information of someone else. Another survivor is an athlete called Amy, who easily outruns the infected, and a few more called Danny, Jacob, and Carla. Unfortunately, it turns out a passenger is infected on the plane, which leads to the plane getting shut down to prevent it from further spreading the disease. Displaying the strict rules of the authorities, who are willing to kill healthy survivors even to prevent one infected from making it out there. Choosing one of these characters, they manage to survive the plane crash, going through the rubble and aftermath of this tragedy. In search of survivors, the protagonist finds Michael, Emma, and Ronnie. Emma, being a famous actress, demands Michael, her assistant, to do many casual chores such as finding her more comfortable shoes, pamper her, and much more, being a very cliche famous person. That's when the protagonist hears painful grunts of a survivor named Joshua pinned down by a heavy broken off part of the plane. His wife, Angela, lies next to him, being unconscious, not looking too good physically. The group separates, with Michael convincing Emma she's too important to become zombie snack, leaving the group behind, refusing to help as they hear zombie roars getting closer. Ronnie also disappears, following Emma, and Michael leaving the protagonist all alone. Defending the injured Joshua and Angela single-handedly against a horde of zombies, he goes to check on them when he suddenly gets attacked by Angela, turning, biting him on his arm before also biting Joshua, which leads to him also turning, with the protagonist having no other choice but to kill both of them in order to defend himself. Phasing in and out of consciousness, the protagonist decides to visit Emma, as she gave her address to the protagonist to meet her there if he ever survives. Arriving at the mansions of Bel Air, the protagonist enters Emma's mansion, being greeted by Michael and Andrea, the housekeeper, who points a gun at the protagonist, noticing that he has a bite. Emma soon comes to the mix, de-escalating the situation when the protagonist loses his consciousness, awakening in the mansion's gym, being handcuffed for safety measures. Strangely, the protagonist starts feeling better than worse, with his bite even healing as if somehow he's immune to the virus. Michael then rushes in, informing Emma that the zombies are trying to force their way in, surrounding the place. The protagonist, feeling stronger, having unexplainable abilities, decides to help out by going out and getting rid of the zombies and fixing the gate to keep any more zombies from coming in. That's when someone by the name of Sam B breaks in, someone who Emma knows. Sam tries to join the group, selling himself as someone who survived the zombie apocalypse before, being even immune to the virus. That's when Emma breaks the news after observing the protagonist, how he in fact is immune to the virus too, as he healed very nicely, and someone who is more than capable of protecting others. Emma reluctantly accepts Sam moving in to her mansion, as the more people, the better chance they have at survival. But the downside is that there would be more mouths to feed. It turns out that Emma and Sam used to date, with Sam leaving her 15 years ago with no explanation, which explains why she was so reluctant of letting him in. But zombie apocalypse seems to be a good excuse to overlook past differences and histories. There seem to be also other people in the house, which play important parts in the gameplay mechanics of the game compared to the story of the game. While everyone is reluctant of leaving the mansion, with Sam not trusting the authorities to contact them, the protagonist tries to find a way out of Los Angeles, as he is fully aware that it's overrun by zombies. That's when the protagonist decides to head to the local evac point at the Halpern Hotel. Not able to find anyone any longer in the hotel, a live broadcast from a radio is then heard, with someone called Dr. Reed urging any listener or survivor to get to Sterling Hotel in Santa Monica, as they they have a shelter there from where Dr. Reed is broadcasting. Soon the protagonist comes to a horrifying discovery that the authorities were dissolving the deceased bodies in the pools, but when they became too concentrated and full, they dumped all the toxic waste into the city sewers. The protagonist soon finds a radio and communicates with Dr. Reed, telling him he's immune, which shocks the doctor, telling him to go there ASAP as they want to develop a vaccine and the protagonist would be very important for that. After battling a super zombified bride, the protagonist decides to grab the rest of his group so they can all go to Santa Monica Sterling Hotel to the doctor. Going back to Emma's mansion, he learns Michael had gone out to play a hero, so maybe Emma can notice him more. The protagonist, shaking his head, doesn't want to leave anyone behind, going out to bring Michael back in one piece. Visiting Michael's house in Beverly Hills, he gets a hint that Michael could be in a friend house named Jesse.
Oh, hey, Michael? This is Roxanne Kwan. If Jess is there studying, could you tell her to be back here by 8? I don't want her to miss the party. Probably best you don't come, though. After, you know. Okay. Bye.
Visiting that house, he meets Ricky and Roxanne Kwan, the mother of Jesse. Roxanne seems to be a lousy mother as she prefers to party and get drunk rather than looking after her daughter, who even got so drunk the day before evacuation that she completely missed the flight. She informs Jesse should be in a construction site up the hill, which the protagonist goes to in order to find both her and Michael. As the protagonist finds Jesse, she informs him that Michael isn't here, being on his way to Monarch Studios instead in order to retrieve something important. Finally finding Michael in a trailer, it's revealed the important thing he wanted to retrieve was Emma's award plus some medical kits. Michael opens up how he wants to be helpful and assist Emma, hence why he risked his life to just collect her award. The protagonist reassures him that Emma depends on him and didn't want to leave without him, which he agrees to go back so they can all leave together. That's when the protagonist receives a radio call from Sam saying that he's in the hills trying to gather some weapons, asking the protagonist to meet him and help out. After meeting up with Sam, who's accompanied by Ronnie, they try to break into the house of Nikki Good, a TV show celebrity hunter, when all of a sudden a zombie Nikki with special abilities incapacitates them, killing Ronnie right in front of them. After defeating the zombies and collecting some weapons, the protagonist informs Sam about his plans of wanting to go to Santa Monica to see the doctor. Sam is pessimistic and concerned that the authorities will always find a way to roll people over, yet he somehow seems to get convinced to go with them. Separating, they plan to meet back in the mansion when after some time, the protagonist reaches the mansion just to find Michael back with a bite, with his condition getting worse by the minute. After a sentimental scene, Emma trying to protect a turning Michael, the protagonist takes the matter into his own hands and shoots him dead before he bites anyone else. This greatly upsets Emma, who demands the protagonist to leave, which gives him a clear understanding that the people in this house all have their own complicated lives and issues, with him having a clear goal of going to Santa Monica and trying his luck of a better life and a chance of survival.
Yes, you have the special blood. You're going to get through this. Michael. Michael. Michael, please wake up. Please.
Okay, that's a wrap. Move.
Fuck you! Why do you get to be the special one, huh? Who the fuck are you?
Emma.
Get out of my house.
Despite Andrea and Sam pleading with the protagonist to stay, he leaves, bidding them farewell and good luck. He takes the sewers path, taking Sam's advice to stay off the zombie-packed streets in order to get to Santa Monica. Going through the sewers, he comes across Patton, who helps him killing some zombies, taking him into his safe house. Patton explains he used to be in the army, where he got a facial injury causing severe deformities, making him seek solitude away from people, as many weren't welcoming and hospitable after that. Due to his isolation, Patton spends his time watching movies, becoming obsessive to the point of collecting cutout boards of his favorite movie characters such as Emma, and rewatching certain movies tens of times. The protagonist urges Patton to go with him, but for a badly beaten down and insecure Patton, isolation is the only way he knows how to live, not being ready to leave his own captivity. The protagonist leaves while Patton sits in front of his TV rewatching his favorite movie, just to occupy his mind not to think of negative things and remembering his traumatic past experiences. As the protagonist tries to cross a bridge, he gets stopped by someone called Conrad, who is accompanied by two others, saying how she has been looking for him and how similar they are. As the protagonist's blood starts rushing and pulsing through, Conrad alongside her companions have veins appearing on their faces and their eyes color changing, depicting that they are possibly immune just like the protagonist, even as if this infection connects them to each other telepathically. They drop the protagonist down to the pit of zombies, which activates something within the protagonist, angering him, which allows him to become so powerful, which he easily rips through the hordes of zombies using his hands. This reveals that the protagonist is not just immune, but he has acquired supernatural abilities. After some time, the protagonist manages to go to the surface, pursuing his goal to reach the Sterling Hotel. On his way, he comes across a group of survivors barricading themselves in a diner named Kai, Trent, Bud, and Alex. Unfortunately, it doesn't take long for Bud to die by a massive passing zombie, which leads to the group panicking and showing how unprepared they are, which the protagonist feels bad for and stays to help for the time being. Meanwhile, the protagonist receives a radio call from Emma telling him that she was upset when she told him to leave and he didn't actually have to, and that he would always be welcome back if he ever wants to return. The protagonist goes out to look for Alex's friends, Goose and Dylan, when he comes across an unexpected scene of Patton harvesting the organs of an already turned goose. Being rightfully confused, Patton demonstrates how the internal organs of certain zombies having supernatural properties, which can be extracted to enhance weapons. Patton soon leaves back to the sewers with the protagonist back on his quest. Coming across a swole zombie Dylan, he defeats him after a long fight, going back to the diner. He informs Alex how both turned already and died, which upsets him, with the group deciding to stay in the diner as they believe it's the safest place for them. Finally, the protagonist manages to enter the Sterling Hotel and meet with Dr. Reed. Dr. Reed explains the harsh reality how CDC could arrange a helicopter for the protagonist to take him to Colorado, and only him, no one else, as others would be a waste of resources, not being useful enough. Meanwhile, the protagonist meets Tisha, the doctor's daughter, who badly wants to scavenge surrounding areas for food and resources to be of help to the survivors. Regardless, the doctor doesn't want to allow that, as she is the last remaining family member that he has, whom he doesn't want to lose. The protagonist gets some rest while the doctor tries to radio CDC, keeping it a secret as others would not be too happy with a stranger getting special treatment while they barely survive. The hotel being a safe house for a number of survivors, with Dr. Reed tending to the wounded, they have created somewhat a stronghold where they have supplies and take it one day at a time. As the protagonist talks to the doctor the next day, he mentions how CDC is not making the shots anymore, with the military having taken control. This makes it a little more tricky for the protagonist to be extracted, as they need proof for the protagonist's immunity before they can extract him. The catch is, the doctor's equipment for testing is at the Santa Monica Pier, which means the protagonist has to go on another risky fetch quest. Arriving at the CDC headquarters and using an equipment to get his own blood sample, he takes it in a form of a vial and leaves the premises after testing it. Arriving back at the Sterling Hotel, to the protagonist's surprise, he finds Conrad sitting in Dr. Reed's office. The protagonist doesn't get enough time learning about her, apart from the fact that they know each other very well before Conrad leaves. Jimmy, apparently the right-hand man to Dr. Reed, barges in, informing the doctor that Tisha, his daughter, left the premises, disregarding her father's clear and persistent instructions to stay, which makes Dr. Reed desperate, asking the protagonist to go out and bring her back safely. After some time finding Tisha, she informs him about Conrad and where he can find her to find out what is really happening and what Dr. Reed is truly involved in. Going to a knockoff Apple Store brand, the protagonist listens to a recording which reveals he's not the first one lured by Dr. Reed, as someone else before him was also told the same things about being special as his immune. Things starting to smell fishy, the protagonist heads to a lab in Ocean Avenue to investigate further. Getting to the lab, he finds the last immune person subjected to a series of brutal and inhuman tests which turned him into a monstrous corpse, which reveals that whatever they were planning to do to the protagonist was anything but noble, which makes Sam a wise guy for telling the protagonist the authorities cannot be trusted. As the protagonist narrowly manages to defeat a monstrous test subject, his zombie side takes control, starting to eat on the corpse when he suddenly attacks an unsuspecting Tisha who's investigating the lab. Tisha easily overpowers the protagonist, but just as she is about to kill him, she stops herself as she hears the pleas of the protagonist. The protagonist soon reawakens, seeing Conrad helping him and healing very nicely after sustaining the injuries from Tisha. She explains they aren't just immune, but they are special, who have a rebirth, similar to vampires. They have superhuman abilities and are given the name New Men by Dr. Reed, maybe because it rhymes with his first name, Ruben. Conrad explains that there is no playing with this entire apocalypse being just a new beginning. New Men are the new humans carrying humanity onwards, while the rest, the weaker ones, get wiped, with it all being nothing but a life cycle. She further explains Dr. Reed is blinded by desperation and there's no cure, as seen by the last specimen, Noah. She then displays how they can telepathically communicate, which is a very neat ability. The protagonist, reasonably creeped out by Conrad, goes to Sterling to confront Dr. Reed. That's when he sees Dr. Reed alongside his daughter flying in a helicopter, taking his blood sample, leaving everyone behind. Entering the hotel, everyone is understandably anxious and uncertain, with Jimmy telling the protagonist Dr. Reed is headed to Hollywood Boulevard. The protagonist contacts Emma and tells her to contact Patton, an ex-military pilot, so he can fly them to Hollywood. He needs her help as Patton is a cagey guy, but being a movie buff, a star like Emma could easily have a big influence on Patton. The protagonist gets back to Emma's mansion, getting everyone ready to leave. It turns out Emma is trying again with Sam, and wanting to leave, she has given the mansion to Andrea, her cleaning lady, who named the mansion after her surname, the Salazar residence, with her and her family planning to stay behind, with only Emma and Sam willing to leave. Going to the sewers to meet with Emma and Sam, they enter Patton's crib with Emma's cutouts and posters everywhere, which makes Patton very embarrassed. But he still refuses to leave and fly, having a traumatic past experience. Emma reminds him of his favorite movie, comparing him to the hero pilot, which instantly convinces him to fly them. So they head to Hollywood Boulevard to steal Dr. Reed's helicopter to escape Los Angeles.
Remember how Randy couldn't get back in a car after his crash? But then, when the monster was about to get me, he suddenly shows up in a Camaro and saves me.
So cool!
I need you to be my Randy. Be Randy for all of us.
Okay. Okay, yeah! I'll try. For you.
Thank you.
Getting on a functional train, they get to Hollywood Boulevard, where they find the helicopter on the rooftop with the pilot being shot dead, seemingly Dr. Reed having had shot him. Sam strangely starts feeling bad despite being immune when the protagonist gets confronted to face Dr. Reed and stop him from doing whatever he wants to do. He does the right thing then running, going to find Reed and put an end to his sinister intentions. He tracks down Reed and his daughter running more tests on themselves, with Tisha seemingly unaware of Reed's misdeeds. It turns out all humans were destined to turn one day, with Reed desperately doing everything in his power to stop that from happening. Apparently all humans in their DNA have the autophage disease, which means that they will one day turn into zombies one way or another. In this process, Dr. Reed quotes that he killed millions to save billions. He further explains humans are simply anomalies, not something Conrad thought to be the new improved humans in a life cycle. It seems Reed finally manages to find an actual cure to get rid of autophagy in human DNA, the zombie disease. To further display his obsession with finding a cure, Reed explains how he modified his unborn daughter, Tisha, injecting human blood in her, so every day it could be harvested from her, making her the cure. Reed, being in a protective glass box, then transforms into a monster similarly to his specimen Noah, revealing how his obsession with the cure was so great that he sacrificed his own life and experimented on his own daughter, Tisha. After fighting off and killing a monstrous Reed, he takes the cure and gives it to Sam to heal, as it seems the autophagy is taking over him. Sam instantly recovers, with the protagonist bidding them farewell as he stays behind to find Tisha, as she is the answer to the world being saved. As they leave, with the protagonist with a new selfless objective to find Tisha and save the world, he is seen being observed by Conrad and her crew. He notices them as well, as he seems to be manifesting his powers, communicating with them telepathically. It appears that there are DLCs planned to expand on what will happen to the protagonist, Tisha, Conrad, and her crew. And that's about it for this video, folks. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed the video, you can stay tuned for more by hitting on the subscribe button and the notification bell. It's been your host Star, and I will see you on the next one. Have a fantastic day.